I guess you guys all know that there was an airdrop on Starknet. And if you got some, you must know this protocol. Brian from zkLend's.
All right, good morning, everyone. Before we begin, just want to lay the stage a little bit. So first two presentation, we had the chance to understand the intricacy of how Starknet works, approval works, and then how to onboard experienced user, experienced developer, intermediate developers onto this new language called Cairo. I'm here to talk about zkLend's, and to be completely honest, I am not a builder. I am a business background co-founder of the project, but what I'm basically wanting to bring the message to you is how we leverage on the Starknet technology and what kind of innovations and what kind of new stuff that we can look towards in terms of the DeFi building space and in terms of bringing on new users onto Starknet and onto these layer 2s. So a little bit of background about myself. I have worked in the TradFi space for quite a long time. I worked in a private equity firm and then investment banking divisions for about 7 years. And before that, I was doing a little bit of FX structuring, and before that at Bloomberg doing fixed income. So I do have my fair shares in terms of doing private debt, public debt, and that's kind of where I've logged in and doing this money market protocol on Starknet. So for those of you who don't know what zkLend's is, I'm sorry this is a very, very repeated slide. I have been in this, so XGMC, I have been in, Stark XGMC, Stark Singapore, and then StarkSeoul right now. So this slide has been repeated at least 3 times. So sorry for that, but just a very quick basic of what we aim to do. So we want to create a very customizable, robust, and responsive lending protocol for both institutions and retail users. And how we intend to do that is we want to encompass both permissionless and permissioned lending. And then basically it's scalable because we are building on Starknet and being able to leverage on a lot of the cost savings and latency improvements. And we want to achieve a very decentralized model going forward. The very basic architecture of what we intend to build, it's basically what we have rolled out so far. It's the left side of the equation. It's the retail side. So very basic, you have a zkLend's market in the middle, basically that does deposits, borrow, repay, lend. And what we do is we have different liquidity pools, and for different liquidity pools, they can interact with each other. They will have different parameters for collateral, for deposit factors, and so forth. And basically, it's just a cycle. And what we intend to do on the right side is that for the permissionless user, eventually there would be a route for them to go through, let's say, KYC, through a CK identity proving, or if it's just going to be a traditional KYC as well. And they would be able to interact with some of the institutional lending pool. And what the institutional lending pool would entail would be basically on the far left side, it's over collateralized. So you have to put in, let's say, $100 USDC to borrow $60 worth of ETH, let's say. On the right side, it's going to be very close to one-to-one because we're leveraging on, right now may not be the right environment to say that institutions are more worthy, but they would have their own collateral off-chain to support some of their lending on-chain. So they will be able to enjoy a little bit better in terms of interest rate and the collateralization ratio. And through that, we're able to kind of link both the retail and the institutional capital that's basically very segregated at the current juncture in time. Sure. So a quick milestone summary of what we have achieved and what we have done so far. We're still very early stage at this given moment. We have completed our fundraising back in 2022 from a wide range of investors. Starkware is also one of our investors. Delphi Digital, it's a lead investors, along with a few other institutional as well, and angel checks. And we've start building since, and our testnet was launched with Cairo Zero Code back in October 2022. And then our mainnet version, still on Cairo 0 code, was launched in May 2023. And since then, we have been basically rewriting the entire code from Cairo 0 to Cairo 1 code. And in October last year, we have finally rolled out our mainnet version. And currently, it's still the mainnet version that we're using. And we have expanded support to 7 assets at the moment. And that includes Repstake ETH and Stark tokens back respectively in October and February. It should be this year, sorry, 24. And also in March 2024, just about 3 weeks ago, we have completed our first airdrops to the community and also the Starknet token launch as well. We get a lot of questions asked, like, we have built for about 2 years. The protocol has been live for about in mainnet alpha stage, for about a year and a little bit more. Why rush on the tokens? And I'll explain that a little bit as to how it basically serves the whole ecosystem of the zkLend's protocol. On the community side, we have been very active in real-life events like this one, and also doing a lot of our own education campaigns. For example, we would have roundtables that talks about wallets, just wallet onboarding. We will have roundtable that talks about security, with Nethermind being our guest, and so forth. And then we would also have basically inviting different founders to come on to talk about their projects. For example, ZKX talking about their perpetual DEX. I think Dora Labs was also one of our guests before, and then also No Guardian was also our guest before. Basically, we want to reach out, using our platform to reach out to users to basically showcase these type of new projects as they come on board Starknet. And obviously, real-life events like this one and Stark Singapore as well. So this is what our protocol looks like. We have about 77, 80 million TVL at the moment. I would say it's one of the larger DeFi protocol on Starknet at the moment for lending protocol. And also one thing to note is you see all these little tiny logos at the on the side with the APY. That's basically the DeFi Spring that's currently running right now with Starknet. So what that means is Starknet, they're running a 4 to 8 months program where it's actually using up a lot of the yields for DeFi protocol. So if you are interested, definitely come on board to try it out and earn really juicy yields. Sorry. So in terms of within the whole Starknet ecosystem, I would say that for our contracts, zkLend's market contracts, we have one of the most active users on board. I would say the first 5, the first 2 basically they are tokens, and then you would have the Starknet ID library as well. So I would say we're kind of like on the top 5, and in terms of the number of step burns, we're also top 5 as well. Now, what I want to bring home the message is how we leverage on Starknet and its current updates to build on top our next phase of the development. Because right now, I think we have the bread and butter, we have the basics of lending protocol, a very base layer of it, kind of like the Aave version 1 or version 2. So what happened, I would say early part of this year is the version 0.13, and 0.13 includes V3 transactions. V3 transactions encompass 3 main components. One is a fee payment in Stark. Basically that it's on the backside, it's also the paymaster. So you're able to do a lot more in terms of, because of account abstractions and paymaster, you are able to set your, let's say instead of paying in Ethereum, you're paying in Stark tokens, or later on paying in Zen tokens or other different stablecoin as well. Currently, you have the choice of paying in ETH or Stark, and then later on, what we want to enable is using Zen tokens and being able to, let's say, if you stake Zen, you would be able to enjoy discount on your gas fees. So these are what we kind of use the tokens for, and then being able to bring loyalty program to using the protocol. Fee markets, that is not new on Ethereum, but that is new on Starknet. So basically, you're bidding for low transaction. For transactions, you're being able to bid for the fees, and then so you would have a higher fees for transaction that's, for example, minting a very desired NFT that could go into it. So then the overall performance of the network would be a lot more streamlined. in terms of the second update, that has happened about 2 to 3 weeks ago already, which is the proto-dank sharding and also EIP 4844. From that one, we see a direct benefit on StarkNet already. Previously, it was I remember a lot of you might have early experience with StarkNet. Doing a transaction costs about $2, and we're coming out and say, yeah, StarkNet is very cheap, but it's actually not at that time. And then about a year later, we decreased the cost to about 20 cents, and it was better than Ethereum, but by far, it's still not the best experience in terms of doing transactions. But I would confidently say right now that after proto-dank sharding, after blobs and EIP 4844, we actually have one of the lowest transaction costs across the entire L2 or entire Ethereum ecosystem at the moment. And I can prove it later on with, just going to the slides, jumping ahead a little bit. That was back in, I would say, 3 months ago. On the left side, where you have a simple USDC transfer costing about 12 cents. Not expensive, but not cheap. But right now, after 4844, basically the cost drops, I would say, more than 98%. But I mean, the general sense is that it's about 10% of what it used to be, and it's significant components across the entire board. And we felt for zkLend doing transactions, it's actually directly correlated as well. So doing a simple deposit costs about 10 cents at the moment compared to maybe a dollar back in the days. So these are the features that are going to get pushed out later on, and the remaining quarters of 2024, which includes transaction parallelization, basically doing multiples into execution of independent transactions concurrently. Cairo native integrations, so the Cairo VM will have a transition to the x86 architecture, and then the Volition, which is a very interesting one, where you would have a hybrid DA model for further DA compression. So for us, what these updates actually unlock for us would be quite a few core features we want to achieve in 2024. One of which is we want to achieve isolated markets, so permissionless market. But what I want to bring home on this slide is that overall what we want to achieve is for zkLend, we try to create the base layer of lending protocol to be as efficient, as thin as possible. What it means by that is our code base actually has one of the most efficient and in terms of step burns, in terms of execution speed, and that's also attested by a very trustworthy auditors of the StarkNet ecosystem. And what it means for us is that in order for us to build a very efficient and robust base layer, we're able to add on a lot of cool features on top without compromising the security and the speed of the underlying borrowing lending operations. So on top of that, we want to add a few new features. For example, isolated market is for new assets, you will be able to add your new assets just like adding a new AMM market. But for example, for protocol that have new token listed, like maybe later on we will see at least 3 or 4 protocol coming on board with their tokens, we will be able to automatically list them, and they will be able to basically put up their capital and then putting up a liquidation pool so that they can run this lending and borrowing without us actually intervening with how they set up the pools. Second is we want to do vault strategy. Vault strategy is actually coming up quite quickly right now. We do see a few protocols that's also doing it at the moment. For example, Stark Farm, Bountif, they're doing somewhat similar to a vault strategy at the moment. What we want to do is we want to have an efficient way of asset allocations across these type of the main pool and also the isolated market. So then there will be a yield optimization component and risk management component, and everything will be rebalanced automatically because of account abstraction and being able to sign in one single signing. Transaction Builder is something that we're quite looking forward to. Basically what it means is we will be able to link borrowing with, let's say, LP, with swaps and everything into one single transaction. You will be able to see it, you will be able to test run it, you will be able to see the entire cost before actually executing it. It's very similar to how you would structure a transaction on Nosa Safe, and then you would be able to see all the way through whether it's the success rate of it before running it. So And then at the very end of it, you'll only have to sign once instead of going to different protocols, approve and sign in and whatsoever. So this one, it's going to be able to enable a lot of developers, enable a lot of traders to build very complex strategy and more high-level strategies on top of us. And the liquidation markets, because we have a very low fees on Starknet, so instead of compared to some of the other layer 1 lending protocol where they would only liquidate when, for example, you are your health factor is below 1, and you would only liquidate about 30% of your loan because it only makes sense to liquidate that much because of gas fee it's like $10 or $15 per se, and then in order to liquidate, let's say $100. But for us, we're able to liquidate as quickly and as incremental as we want because the gas fee is a lot lower, so that we would have a much better user experience so that they don't go back one day and lose 30% of the principal. And on top of that, what we're enabling a lot of users is they're able to compete on this type of liquidation model. It's liquidation auctions, essentially. Oops. So how the token actually integrates with the zkLend protocol, it's, I mentioned that we came up with our token quite early, and we want to make sure that the token it's not just something of a speculation or something that's of a hype for zkLend, because that's not what we're going for. The token itself actually has a few immediate token utilization that we want to integrate within this year. So staking is definitely one of them, where you would stake your tokens, you would be able to get rewards from both staking plus the liquidation bonus, because we also run liquidation process ourselves, and the profit we make will actually go back to the staking protocol. And then we would have the paymaster. So the paymaster is basically using Cent tokens to pay gas fees. And when you have staking of Cent tokens, you would have a preferential gas fees because some of the gas fees is going to be subsidized by us. And then incentive voting. So incentive voting is very similar to kind of like VE33, where you would stake your tokens and then you will be able to vote, for example, for the liquidation model for the distribution, where what these incentives would go to which incentive pools. For example, you could vote for it to go to ETH pool because you'd have a lot of ETH borrowing and ETH deposits. So all these basically, because you are vested, you are a token holder of the zkLend protocol, you will have more say as to what the distribution would go and how that would benefit you in operating within the protocol. And lastly, basically governance in terms of how you set up the interest rate model, bring on new assets and income parameters per se. Now, these are what we want to do for the first half of the year. But I would say for what we want to do for the V2 of zkLend, it's actually a lot more ambitious than that. So I'll just use the remaining 2 slides to go over it. How we're seeing the L2 DeFi landscape right now, it's we have about 40 billion TVL locked across 45 different layer 2s. That be zk rollup, that be optimistic, and also optimistic rollup as well. And you will only see both numbers growing up. For example, the 40 bill could be 80 by end of this year, and then the 45 definitely is going to be 100 or something along that line, with a lot of different layer 2s just popping up, and with their own execution and with their own proving and validations model. Still be zk, but basically because zk you would have from zk EVM all the one from type 1 to type 4, and a non-zk EVM like Starknet. So there's going to be a lot far and few between all how these are being structured. But that is not actually a good thing for how liquidity work, because basically you would have a lot of bridging, you would have a lot of liquidity fluctuation, and for protocol building on different layer 2s, they just can't really integrate and can't really have the composability with each other. So what we actually are looking towards in terms of tackling this problem, yeah, it's really badly put together slides, but just bear with me. So what we want to do, it's currently what we have, it's the zkLend v1 on StarkNet layer 2 is just right here at the moment without everything else. So we were just serving the StarkNet layer 2 ecosystem with TVL on it. But ultimately what we want to do is we want to build leveraging on StarkNet layer 3 and also app chain capability, and basically have a proprietary prover being able to set up an app chain that's able to connect with a few things. So for the institutional side right here, we were able to create private layer 3, and what this means is for users to get on board, you have to get whitelisted. You can determine the characteristic of these layer 3s, who gets in, what kind of cost that would be for doing the blocks. And one more interesting thing is the DA, because currently on when Volition is being introduced, you have the hybrid model of doing a Validium mode or a rollup mode. So basically, you're able to vote on certain members to create, for example, a DAC, data availability community, for the main users to withhold these data. And that could be including reputable parties, for example, like the infrastructure provider like Nethermind, to be one of the members to withhold this. Withhold this data. So what you would be able to have a semi-privacy layer on layer 3 for a lot of institutions that actually want to basically withhold some of their transaction history and transaction basically transaction amount and everything and details to the public user. So these are not masked, but they're just held by a different party. Sorry, I think. And on top of that, what we want to do is basically we want to connect initially all the layer 2s, and being able to have a bridge, have multiple bridges that connects to all of them, and being able to basically act as a lending aggregator. So for example, on Ethereum layer 1, we have a very high yield on like the restaking tokens on Ethereum right now. So we're able to tap into that through somewhat like a DeFi pooling, a U aggregator point of view. And then secondly would be to act as an omni-chain money market. So imagine you have a Bravos wallet, and then you will want to deposit on Arbitrum, and you would be able to do it through the app chain, and then basically we would set up a separate pool of capital on Arbitrum in order for it to get borrow and lend. Hopefully by, I would say, some point in time, you would have both ways going across, so that you don't have to actually do a lot of bridging. It would just be a fund management exercise. But initially, there would be actual bridging of tokens and through the canonical bridge, and that could be a latency issues and security issues at the very onset. So that is still a concept that we're very actively working to resolve, and we're working with parties, for example, like zkLend's, Omni, and also Herodotus to see how we can resolve the bridging issues. And ultimately, once the balance pool, and another thing would be we could use liquidity provider. Basically, they would just provide a pool of liquidity on the destination chain, and we would borrow and lend from them, so to speak. And the finality issues of the different layer 2s is going to be a thing that we want to tackle as well, because within Starknet, it's very quick. And until you deposit it back to, let's say, layer 1, which it's going to take a couple hours to maybe up to a day. Within layer 2s, we do see that there is going to be a finality issues where it might take a couple seconds or up to an hour. So obviously lending, it's not optimum if you have to wait an hour for the funds to get released. But with the better tech that's coming up, and with Omni that's Omni, I think they're looking at something that's decreased latency across the different layer 2. We would hope that this issue would actually get resolved relatively quickly towards the end of this year. And that's kind of what we see the vision of a kind of like chain chain abstractor. It's a word that I have heard a couple days ago, and what we're kind of looking at, it's kind of like a chain abstractor or a chain DeFi lending abstractor that combines all the different lending protocols on layer 2 and across chain, and being able to build one single streamless experience across the board. So that will be what we will try to build towards the end of this year, and what we will call a zkLend's v2. Once we have more updates on this, we'll definitely keep keep you guys posted. But for the meantime, we're actively working on V1 and improving the version and making sure that user experience and the features are relevant, and it will bring more users onto the Starknet Layer 2 ecosystem. With that, I would conclude my presentation, and here are some of our contacts. So just going to the zkLend.com, you'll be able to find all our socials there. If you have any questions, I'll be around, or if you have any media questions right now, feel free to take it. I'm happy to take it. If not, I don't want to take up too much of your time right now, so thank you all for taking this time to listen to me. Thank you.